Excellent. Well, thank you for joining today. This is our event, Sustainable Real Estate, Driving Investment and Demand, where we're going to be hearing from some excellent panelists to talk through various perspectives on sustainable real estate. We are hosting this both live and virtually. If you're joining us virtually, thank you so much for being here. We will take questions throughout. And we'll also have questions at the end. They'll be fed up to the panel and we'll get them where they need to go. And then I guess let me introduce myself. My name is Matthew Parmel. I am the chair of the Environmental and Sustainability Practice at Offit Kurman, which is a full-service national law firm in the United States. What my practice focuses on, it traditionally was hazardous substances, environmental issues, but has since expanded to all things sustainability, and that's a difficult thing to define everywhere, but also in the legal industry. And how we define it here is helping companies, businesses, individuals even sometimes, to do what they want to do, to make the initiatives happen that help them meet their climate goals. Whether that's starting a recycling facility, putting a climate clause in a contract, advising on greenwashing and advertising issues, or any number of the real legal nuts and bolts that drive sustainability forward. As I said, I'm very happy to be able to put this panel together because real estate is one of the things that we focus on significantly and one of the places that we think has a tremendous impact on sustainability. So, as I said, we're going to have different perspectives today. We're going to hear from a consulting perspective on how businesses and real estate in particular can address sustainability issues. We'll hear from an investment financing perspective as well. And then we'll hear finally from a business that is in the hospitality space that is working on these issues. So without further ado then, we will get started. I will hand this over to Sarah Curry-Halpern, who is one of the co-founders of Think Zero, which is a consultancy that works on waste issues with a particular focus on real estate. And I'll allow her to give her the chance to introduce herself a little bit more.
Thank you for having me as well. Let's make sure this is working. This one. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. We're Think Zero. We support businesses in their zero waste journey, in their waste reduction and diversion journey. And so happy to be here. And I'm going to hopefully get this thing moving. There we go. Okay. So just a quick bit on our team. So I'm Sarah, as you know, I'm an advisor to corporations on waste issues. I worked for the mayor's office in solid waste and zero waste programs for a little while before starting Think Zero. And I'm on the board of EcoCycle in Colorado. I'm actually based out of Colorado. Think Zero is Colorado and New York based, but we do work around the country. And I'm certified as a true zero waste business associate and WELL AP. My business partner, Ushma, could not join us today, but here's a little on her background. I'm not going to dive into this too much. Here's our team. So what drives our work? That's really what we're here to talk about. Certainly the move to a circular economy is definitely helping drive this work. As we all know, we're sort of still in a linear economy where we're extracting raw materials, we're manufacturing them, we're consuming them, and then we're disposing them generally in a landfill setting. We're burning them or into the environment. Fortunately, we are moving to this format, which is a circular economy. I'm sure you're all very familiar, but just in case you're not, we're in this mode. We are essentially designing and manufacturing, we're consuming, and then we're recollecting those materials and reusing them in different modalities. So that could be either through reuse, that could be recycling, remanufacturing, a variety of different ways. This is where we want to be. Some companies are already here, but for the most part, we're probably somewhere in the middle, certainly in the US. Another thing that's driving our work is a trend in corporate sustainability, fortunately, where it's not all about just energy and water anymore. We're also looking at waste and circular economy. And many companies are concerned with this. They want to make sure that they're touching on all four of these and more, because obviously this isn't the whole world of sustainability. But traditionally, companies were, let's be frank, worried about energy and maybe water. And now we're seeing that it's the whole picture, which is really important. I just want to touch on really quick that the circular economy is certainly very much intertwined with climate change. As we talk about these issues, as we look at circular economy and how it impacts climate change in a positive way, we're reducing over extraction of resources, we're reducing our emissions, we're keeping materials in play, as I was just mentioning before, and then finally reducing our reliance on landfills. So this is a really critical piece of Climate Week as well, and mitigating climate change. What drives our work personally is the EPA waste hierarchy, among other things. So we're always wanting to start at the top and do as much on the top as we can. Just a reminder on this, so that's focusing on, reducing what we put in the bin in the first place. So source reduction, maybe not using as much, reducing the waste that we generate. If that's not possible, we're encouraging reuse over recycling. If that's not possible, we're eliminating. If reuse isn't possible, essentially we're recycling and on down the chain until we get to essentially down here, which is landfilling or incinerating, which we want to avoid. And so that's really what we think a lot about. So why are our clients on this journey with us? And why is real estate in general paying more attention to this? This is because of a lot of waste reduction legislation that's out there. I'm going to talk specifically about that in a couple slides. Consumer awareness for these issues, there's just a lot more in the media these days, whether it's microplastic, landfilling issues, pollution issues related to waste. They're concerned about it, and that trickles down, corporations are paying attention therefore. And then, as I said, companies thinking about waste. Maybe some of their younger employees are bringing it up. Why aren't we composting in the office? What are we doing with our recycling? Where is it going? Asking a lot more questions. When they're asking those questions and you don't have a consultant working with you, it may be hard to answer some of those questions. Or say that you have anything going on in that area. So what are we doing? What are we doing for them? I won't stop here too much, but just really quick on some of the things we do. So waste reduction diversion work, we're doing a lot of training and behavior change management. I really like to say that this is changing. We are trying to change the culture of the business place towards lowering waste, obviously, more sustainable mindset. Thinking about things a little bit differently. Zero waste program design. So that's bringing in all the different types of recycling we can possibly bring. Everything that's in your waste stream, we want to be figuring out a way to either reuse it, recycle it, or do the right thing with it. Internal communication development, compliance assessments, and waste auditing is really core to what we do. So this is coming in and making sure you are compliant with your local, state, and even federal waste regulations. Waste auditing is, I'm sure you're all familiar. We do this for almost all of our clients, where we come in and we weigh the waste, we sort it, and we're giving them a very detailed report of exactly what's in their waste stream. Specialty services, we're doing a lot of donation management stuff. So what we're seeing with a lot of our clients is that there's a lot of donation opportunity. I'll talk a little bit about this more a couple slides down, but there can be a real triple bottom line benefit here, because it's not just the environment we're benefiting. It's also the social, obviously social good. We're donating goods that people need, and there's a financial benefit. There's a cost savings. So I'll talk more about that a little bit later. Zero waste event planning, all sorts of other fun things we can do under that. And then designing buildings for waste. So we do come in very early on with buildings out of the ground and help design 21st century zero waste services, infrastructure, and equipment. Matt and I recently worked on a project together that's just opened up and is looking beautiful. I was there on Saturday, which is 49 Fisk Birch House in Jersey City. Fantastic example. I'll talk a little bit more about that one later, but that's, they are doing a home biogas system, an anaerobic digester, and this is a residential building, so we're getting really cutting edge, even in residential properties, doing this kind of stuff, working with haulers and other engagement. So let's get into the meat of, hopefully I didn't get screwed up with that one. Oh, no, it's not liking me.
We can't advance the slides.
Yeah,
Can you advance it?
I think it just got on like a funny thing for a second, maybe.
There we go.
Okay, thank you so much. So this is the fun stuff. So who are we working with? Here's a couple of our clients. We have a couple in the room. RXR is here. Thanks so much. Just a short list of clients. But I wanted to take you through a little bit. What does building engagement look like? What does this really look like when we're in a property? So data collection is absolutely critical to this work. And this fits in really well with GRESB, Energy Star, sustainability planning, ESG planning. We're really supporting all of that planning with this. And of course, it all starts with goal setting. We're setting goals and then we're trying to drive towards those waste goals. A lot of this data comes in through, well, we have two places that waste data comes in through. Either the waste haulers, where we get monthly data from, or our waste audit reports. And we typically do those once or twice a year. And then that's driving everything else. A lot of it is operational processes. So conducting those compliance assessments I talked about, working with the building teams, working with everyone who touches waste in a property. So we have green teams set up with cleaning supervisors, property management teams, tenants, really anyone in a building who is generating any kind of waste or touching the waste stream will be working with us. Supporting composting is a big one. Obviously, over the last few years, many more businesses are taking up composting programs. So day in, day out, we are supporting that. Any of their questions, how can we deal with smells, odors, making sure there aren't any issues. So that's a lot there. And then sustainable purchasing options. So we do work with a lot of cafes and cafeterias who are considering the switch to reusables, somewhere in between the switch to reusables and still using disposables. We think a lot about, if you're using disposables, what's the most sustainable option? I won't get into that now, but we generally encourage a switch to reusables, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. Finally, the behavior change and the reporting. I think the only thing I'll touch on the behavior change again is forming green teams, tabling the lobbies, organizing drives, really anything we can be doing to get folks thinking about these issues, not just chucking things in the trash bin without thinking about it, but realizing we're really making a difference here when we're putting it either in the correct bin or we're participating in one of these drives or other events that's going on, specialty recycling. You're making a really big difference. And then, of course, putting that into the reporting at the end of the year. And we love to show those great statistics at the end of the year. Clicker's still not liking me. I'm so sorry. There we go. Next. Should I just say next to you? Sure. So next. So a couple of quick case studies. RXR is one of our longer term clients. We do a ton of work with them. They actually set goals back in 2018 that we've been driving towards, and they update their goals every other year. And we're pleased to say that we've been hitting those goals. So those are diversion goals. Those are also year-over-year waste reduction goals. So if you look at the overall waste tonnage generated for a whole company, they want to be reducing that 10% every year. And so it's really exciting. We've been able to hit these goals through all this work I've been talking about. So, I've touched on the waste audits and compliance assessments. Really, once those property managers see the waste audit results, that's driving our work for the rest of the year. This is telling us, oh, wow, we have like a ton of food waste still in the trash, or we have a lot of our tenants are still using the plastic coffee pods. Let's try and switch them back to drip coffee. All these different ways that we can reduce what's in the trash, recycle, and compost, but also obviously have a more clean stream. So we do still see a ton of contamination. I would say if you ask me what the number one issue is across businesses and corporations, it's a ton of contamination in the bins. I can't say it enough how important it is for people actually to put things in the right bin. So we're always driving that messaging home. Tenant engagement is a huge part of it. One of the biggest challenges with real estate owners, both commercial and residential, is getting to tenants, right? How are we getting to our residents and tenants? How are we driving this messaging home? How are we seeing that behavior change? So that's really what we're doing day in, day out. And how are we doing that? Through the work I'm talking about here. But it's also it's relationships, right? We're all working on relationships. It's the same thing with waste reduction and diversion. Getting that tenant's card, following up with them, developing that trust, and then they start to see change happen. Obviously, if we connect with the tenant, we connect with their facility manager, and they're aware of what we're doing at RXR, they're going to start having that trickle down in their company, in their space. So that's been really exciting to see. And so that's a bit of going on at RXR. But down here, these are actually some older numbers, but you can see over the course of 4 years, really exciting. 13 million pounds diverted, almost 700,000 pounds composted, 12 million pounds recycled, 100,000 pounds donated. And we're at much higher numbers now with RXR. This is actually like a year or 2 years old. So next slide. I'll go through these more quickly, but we do LEED compliant waste audits. Hippodrome building is a local building right here in New York City. That's a little bit more of a detailed waste audit, and that supports their LEED application. I believe they did end up getting their LEED. Next slide. And then just a quick government example. We've done some work for NYCHA. This was a project we did, a mattress recycling program, really zeroing in on that issue of mattresses and bulk out on the curb, and what to do about these materials. So we, worked with NYCHA staff. We really looked at how can we get this stuff out of here quickly, divert as much as possible, and did develop a program that they put in place, which was scaled across multiple sites. These are really difficult sites, really, really tight, very little space for infrastructure, very old infrastructure. And we were able to train staff, get the materials out there, resident training materials, so the residents knew about it as well. Really communication was key here. And then having obviously the operational plan and the infrastructure on site to be able to collect these materials efficiently. Next slide. Business case. Matt wanted me to make sure I get to business case, and this is my favorite part to talk about too. Next slide. I don't know if mine's working or not. So mine is working now. Okay, so business case for reducing waste. There's a lot of business case here and rationale for why real estate folks are doing this. So ESG sustainability planning, as I mentioned, is becoming absolutely paramount. Most companies now have some kind of sustainability planning or ESG planning in place. So this really is that, obviously, the environmental piece in that. We work directly on these plans. We work hand in hand with our clients on whatever portion of that plan they need and that we can be a part of. Cost savings, I'll talk more about. I have a slide after this. A lot of cost saving opportunities here, public relations and internal marketing opportunities, compliance with the law, appeasing shareholders and investors who want to see this more often. They want to be making green investments and green commitments. And so if you don't have anything to say about that, they might be going somewhere else. So it's really important to be able to check that box. And of course, reducing your carbon footprint as well. Next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about compliance with the law. We're definitely seeing growth in these regulations that are requiring this across the country. These ones that I'm touching on are all past, and some of them are quite old, but they're still driving this work today. And then we're seeing a lot more new regulations come across both at the local, state, and federal level even. There's some pending legislation that could start driving more of this work and requirements around recycling, EPR, extended producer responsibility, and all these things. But as far as state regulations, we've definitely had a good deal of work in California due to California SB 1383 and AB 341, which are requiring organics diversion and, of course, recycling across businesses. They consider a business to also be a multifamily building. So our work happened to be on multifamily properties, but businesses have to do this as well. So they're definitely having some struggles there with it, but it is the law. And so we are seeing a lot of work come out of that area because of that. There's a lot of companies that are behind still that aren't quite there yet. New York State Electronic Recycling Reuse Act has been around for ages. And, a lot of companies, most companies that we see are doing pretty well on that. And that's just basically you have to have your electronics separated for specialty recycle. They cannot go in the regular trash. They can't go in the regular recycle. New Hampshire battery disposal ban, no batteries in the trash or recycle. They have to specialty recycle them. Washington expansion of food donation and recycling requirements. And then, of course, local regulations. Now, New York City has the Zero Waste Act, which is driving, more organics diversion across the city. And we've had the NYC commercial recycling rules and the NYC organics rules for quite some time now, at least a couple of years. I think the recycling rules came into play in like 2016. And many of us in this room know that drove so much of this work starting at that time and continues to drive it today. Denver, we have Waste No More, which is mandatory recycling, mandatory organics for restaurants. We're not quite there yet that it's mandatory for all businesses, but they're going to be headed in that direction. One thing we talk to our clients about is what is coming, obviously. We need to be aware of what's coming down the pipe in the next couple of years. And so we're always looking at this. We do update our clients regularly, at least twice a year, if not more regularly, on what's coming down the pipe for regulations. Boulder, Colorado is one of the first in the country. We have universal zero waste ordinance. So we've been separating out organics and recycling for quite a long time. I think maybe 15, 20 years. We also have curbside organics for like 15, 20 years. So definitely a leader in the country. And then Los Angeles, mandatory recycling, organics diversion. We've done some work in LA on that as well. Cost saving opportunities. We probably don't drive it home enough, all of the cost saving opportunities here. I'm just giving you a few examples. Obviously, there's many more. So one thing we think about all the time is switching to air hand dryers from paper towels. We've looked at, believe it or not, there's a lot of studies out there about this. And there's always the sanitary concerns, of course, but we're seeing a lot more groups drive in that direction. Look at airports. Most airports have gone hand dryers rather than paper towels. It's a cost savings for multiple reasons. Not only is it cost saving because of the paper towels and the purchase of paper towels, it's also the cleaning and the waste hauling. So you have a lot more waste if you're using paper towels and a lot more cleaning. So that's one we talk about a lot. Cordless toilet paper systems. So we notice that a lot of our clients are basically, this is sort of a New York thing. I don't see this across the country, but cleaning teams are instructed to empty toilet paper systems, basically, when they the toilet paper rolls are like 25% or 50% left on the toilet paper roll. And that's a ton of waste inherent in that. So we started donation programs years ago to get that all donated, but really let's go drive past donations. Let's make sure that we're try and switch to cordless. So you don't even have the core of the toilet paper and you're really not wasting it all and there's no need for donation. And there's a huge cost saving there as well. And then of course, switching to reusable dishware, utensils, cups and mugs. If you're buying disposables every single month, you're spending a ton of money, particularly so many businesses spending the money on compostable serviceware, which we hopefully all know is greenwash. It's always more expensive to buy your compostable serviceware than say like a plastic alternative. But really the best alternative is reusables. Even with dishwashing, we always recommend the reusables and there's definitely cost saving opportunities there. Every situation is a little bit unique how much you're going to be saving, but we definitely see the opportunity. Facility on the external side, reduce waste hauling costs, of course. Anytime you're reducing your waste stream, you have reduced waste hauling costs potentially over time. You may not see it right away, but over the course of a year or 2 years, you're going to start to see reduced waste hauling costs as your waste generation goes down. And then really cool potential for energy savings with a biogas digester. So I mentioned the project that Matt and I worked on together. This is the system that they're putting in place in the next couple of months at 49 Fifth Birch House. So in this situation, they are heating hot water with so the food scraps go into the biodigester, they're processed, and then essentially what comes out is energy to heat hot water as well as a liquid fertilizer. They have huge garden systems there. So number 3 bullet is also applies to this particular building where they're saving on fertilizer as well, coming out of the system. But I know with in-vessel composting technology can also save you money on fertilizer coming out. So some really cool opportunities there. And like I said, this is only a few examples. I want to mention PR and marketing opportunities driving this as well. So definitely promoting waste reduction programs is a triple bottom line benefit, as I mentioned. We really like to find those triple bottom line benefit opportunities, such as, again, using the case of RXR, we've had many donations that go to maybe those in need, fire department, police department. Again, where you're saving money, you're getting a tax write-off. You're also, doing a good deed. This is going to people in need, and it's really a great benefit. We always love to see the data-driven results, such as increase in diversion rate, year-over-year overall waste reduction in waste tonnage, because these can be touted. Let's get this information out to the press, and hopefully they will pick it up. And then using events to create excitement. There's also a lot of internal marketing inherent in this. This is what drives the culture change, right? That I spoke about earlier. We want to be, driving that culture change. And what does that? A lot of it is reminding people all the time. I love this one, like a little coffee cup challenge, starting the month off with all disposable coffee cups, but then starting to weed in your mugs throughout the month. And by the time you get to the end of the month, you're on a reusable mug every day. So it's just like little ideas and little nudges to get people to make these switches. That is behavior change at the end of the day, because people, kind of buy into this, then we're seeing success. And again, we could utilize challenges and gamification. We've done a lot of like zero waste challenges, which have been super fun and really engage people. One we did at one portfolio was a sustainable suite challenge. That was actually at RXR, and where each PMO office was competing with one another on a variety of metrics to get the best score at the end of the challenge. And I am telling you, as soon as you have people compete against one another, you got their attention, they're going to change their ways, they're going to try everything they can. So this was things like, have composting in your property management office. Do you have coffee pod recycling? Oops, sorry. Do you have, a variety of different things they could have in the office, and whoever was doing more of these things and doing them successfully would win the challenge. So I definitely encourage challenges as well to be considered. But we're always driving, this type of messaging across elevator screens, stanchions and lobbies, flyers, newsletters, apps, wherever we can get this information out, and changing it up every month as well to keep it fresh. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much. And I guess we'll take questions later.
No, we can take the question or two now. Do we have any from the in-person or remote? Nothing remote. Excellent. So then we'll keep questions at the end. Actually, I have a question for you, which was you put up the local regulations slide.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've been wondering is I feel like it's not trickling down as fast as I was expecting,
Mhm.
right? Like, I know we've got, some laws in New York, some laws in DC, you popped up a couple others. How are you seeing that expansion? You might be closer to sort of like grassroots talks about it.
Yeah.
Are you seeing more of that regulatory perspective on it moving, or is everyone still kind of waiting to see how these laws are implemented?
Yeah, I think I was gonna say, I think enforcement is key there. I've sat on the board of Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board and other boards like that. I sit on the board of EcoCycle in Boulder, and I think we really need grassroots groups to drive that and put pressure on government agencies to have more enforcement. Last I checked, and so don't quote me, but I know DSNY has a pretty small enforcement team, for example. And yeah, we do get questions from our clients like, well, we've never gotten a ticket. Should we really care? And so a lot of it is just getting ahead of these regulations and getting ahead of that one day when the enforcement officers come. To be honest, I wish it wasn't the case. I wish there was stronger enforcement. I think for using the example of New York City Organics, we have seen a little more enforcement. We have seen more ticketing, particularly in restaurants. And so it depends on sort of the area they're focused on. But yeah, enforcement, there has to be enforcement of it to make it happen.
So
Yeah.
that's very fascinating. A study was just released explaining that of the states that have food waste diversion bans, which are part of what we're talking about, only Massachusetts, which had the most enforcement, has actually had a measurable effect towards getting towards the goals that it set.
Yeah.
All the other ones, at least the ones that have had enough time,
Yes.
have not achieved their goal or gotten even close to the diversion goals that they're asking for. So enforcement plays such a large role. But I know we were talking with someone in the audience here before we got started about how those laws also give a hook for buildings to just say to their tenants, hey, you've got to start doing this. So there's a way in which those laws, whether they're being enforced by the authority or not, can be passed along, can help the conversation
Just to
happen.
add to that,
Yes,
also
please.
leases, putting this language in leases and
Yes.
mandating it. We did convince, for example, 49 Fifth Birch House to make it mandatory that residents have to source separate organic materials and recyclables. And so it makes a big difference when it's in the lease and they're signing off, people pay attention to that. So we
Makes
try and do
huge
the same thing commercially too. Commercial leases have had recycling language in there for a long time, but let's try and get the organics in there as well. We haven't seen that as much.
Yes, so this is what we're hosting another climate event today for lawyers, which is entirely on that topic of how climate goals don't happen unless they're in contracts.
Fantastic.
And so, anyone who wants more information on that, just send an email and we can get you part of that reporting as well. The screen seems not to be. Yes.
I just have something to add. So I'm a property manager for a commercial building at 75 Rockefeller Plaza. And to that point, I created my own pink slip, so to speak, for tenants that don't comply with the local law 19. And I create a violation form and just highlight what they've done not correctly. I place it on that tenant's desk. I won't collect their waste. Then I get the phone call the following morning saying what's going on. And then I explain to them, you need to comply. I think enforcement of the policy and from the landlord's perspective or from what's happening at the state level needs to be done. And I think often it just falls on the lap of the property manager to make sure it gets done.
Yeah, but that's a great point. There are punitive things, or sort of if we look at carrot and stick, there are stick things that you can do as property managers and owners to get the tenants to do this work. And one of those things is, right, if they're not doing it right, not collecting their waste, fining them, things like that. So thank you for bringing that up.
And having to build your own system as a property manager is challenging. Having to customize it for your own building as opposed to maybe there being a system that exists so that all property managers could opt in, potentially use something that works across the board, might make a system more efficient.
Sure.
Excellent. This is the exact discussion I was hoping we get to have today. So we're going to switch over to the finance perspective now. Nicolas de Alejo from Climate CapX Partners. I'll let him tell us a little bit more about himself and then what he wants to share with us.
Thank you for having me. Nice to meet everyone. Nicolas de Alejo, Climate CapX Advisors. We're a full service clean tech advisory and infrastructure practice. And so most of my career has been spent on, or at least the first half, on the investment side, focused on kind of global governments and large scale projects. And the last 4 to 5 years has been more kind of in the middle market. So the reason I bring that up is, and what also resides is a lot of the clients I've had don't really react unless there is a regulation in place. And even if there's a regulation 3 years out, they're going to wait until it's kind of day of enforcement. And so what's been kind of interesting, at least in the past kind of 3 to 4 years, is the ability for family office and other private capital to start to look at an opportunity and kind of in parallel, provide capital that can focus on this. We also have some of the CPACE and other, programs that have kind of come up. And so a lot of what we focus on is how do we work with in between governments and companies, but mainly clean tech companies, and introduce them to property developers, coming with financing packages and thinking through ways of stacking that. And yeah, part of that journey has also been a lot of wellness and circular economy as well, kind of baked into that. So I'll stop there and pass it over, or if you have any questions or how you want to dive into this.
So you mentioned CPACE, right? Like, so that's a very specific program where we build the loans to the infrastructure into the tax assessments. How are you seeing that employed, right? What kind of technologies, what kind of, is it as widespread as it should be?
Well, that's a great question. No, because there's usually a quantum of capital needed. So if it's too small of a property, a lot of times it's harder to kind of think through that aspect of the financing. Usually we're seeing in the market kind of 30 million is kind of the smallest
Oh, wow.
property size where that becomes attractive, which is sad, right? You would think that it should be smaller than that. And look, I mean, it happens, it's more robust, but what you're speaking about is the core of the market starting to adopt that. And unfortunately, not as much as I would like. And there's also some states that have not voted on this becoming part of their opportunity set as well. And so I think there's a long room to go. But then there's also in that sweet spot of kind of call it 25 to 75 million, you actually are seeing incredible activity and a lot of rehabilitation projects and things that can kind of bring a lot more, economic activity to certain parts of the country. So I think that's been robust, but I think the size of it is definitely prohibitive for, just certain parts of the market that you want to, how do you bridge that gap, I think is the next layer. And you're seeing some of that with these smaller financing companies that can bring forward loans or bring forward other parts that, or even bring forward the CPACE loan in itself, right? In terms of a bridge kind of capital financing. So lot to do. That area, I only focus on that or say that because I do think it's a good model, just like the Fannie Greens decades ago, right? That kind of created a lot of this kind of how do we bring in some of these attributes into the real estate financing package. That's what CPACE is trying to do. And the next layer of this, I think, have to come from, and it has a lot to do with the timing of leases, right? And the length of kind of real estate contracts is how do you start to maybe bring in something that's more just smaller and either at the bank, at the family office, or somewhere where you can think about it on the contract side. Because that's the only time we've seen this be effective outside of like a more institutional side, is where somehow people got together and thought on the contract side, it was worth thinking through what that meant. And it could even be redistribution of certain profits or parts of the income streams at certain times if certain goals are met or achieved, kind of the whole sustainable linked market, which is another thing that, again, it was bigger, but we're starting to see it come into at the building or at the project layer, because you can, marry that with other parts of like either loans, really loans is what we're seeing that is bringing forward some of that. So if you want to bring a water filtration project that's near a certain big site, right, you can effectively do some of this bridge financing to create, the opportunity that would have maybe taken 3 years to do the full brownfielding in terms of getting the financing outlet ready, might take now, 6 months less, which is significant from a cost of capital standpoint.
That's fascinating. So CPACE is predominantly a government program, right? Like set up, but I think you mentioned also sustainability linked sort of types of financing aspects, and that's much more, as I understand, on the private side. So how does that work? Like, is it's metrics that get put into loans, investment pieces? Like, how are you seeing that work? Are there examples that you can give on how you're seeing sustainable linked work?
Yeah, so that was a very interesting market that kind of blossomed a few years ago. It kind of hit a headway because a lot of it from a greenwashing standpoint, people weren't trusting the metrics. Now you're seeing step ups of like 50 to 100 basis points on some of the more higher yielding kind of assets, particularly in the project finance space. And I bring this into the real estate because a lot of this land is either government land that's being repurposed and brought into these projects, or people are using the land as in-kind financing, right, as they kind of bring that in. So the sustainability link, what we're seeing that now is all on can they achieve usually something that has a carbon sequestration or a way to get some type of credit on the other side, right? Because then it's kind of a balance. And there, through that unlock, there could be either a IPT or an interest rate, kind of, or there could be a lockbox where additional, kind of, almost like a dividend could be paid into the structure. So that in the link space, I think it's more about what are the goals of either the actual property itself or what can be achieved, and then can that be turned into some monetization stream? And usually if it could, we're seeing that as kind of the link. So if you can get towards a certain, level of reduction that then has a certain monetary value through some, some government aspect or otherwise, that's kind of how that can kind of be brought together. But on the sustainability link, that's also another size constraint, right? I've seen that in like $5 million, renewable project loans and things related to kind of real estate development. But that is mainly for the bank themselves having goals and willing to either tap into their CRA loan book or other things like that to try and, provide that financing. So it's not what I would say sustainable finance is in linked, but it's more linked to certain metrics that allow for the financing to be available.
Interesting. So what you're sort of saying there is that the issues with the blossoming of, is this real, is it greenwashing? Some of that has been ameliorated by tying it to actual verifiable credits or offsets or things like that, so that this gets baked in a little bit more. And that at the same time it allows access to, right, like specific sources of capital, because those offsets can be sold, those credits can be sold. So there is a bucket of money that works along with that too.
There is, it's kind of like it's not magic, right? At the end of the day, it only comes when you can get to the similar type of, all in, kind of either value set or cap rate or whatever the case is. So I don't think it's they naturally come. It's more, can you create an extra incentive, right, to pull them forward that now you have, instead of 6 bids, maybe 7 or 8. And that is meaningful, especially in high yield space. The one additional bid at the end can make a deal happen because as people pull out because they learn more information, having a little bit more of initial parties there, which I think that's what sustainability does in this space, is it gets you not 5 or 6 potential bids or LOIs, but you might have 7 or 8 because there's another couple of parties that actually are interested, but it's also hitting the same cap rates that make sense or the same all-in value that all of the investors that are part of the pool, not necessarily just sustainability investors.
And so you have mentioned that some of these areas have been blossoming. I'm not sure if I'm reading too much into your language, but are they shrinking now? Are they still growing? What's the health of this financing market?
Yeah, I think it's turning more towards how do you impact and again, just in the real estate side, how do you impact the tenant? And there are a lot of projects that are starting to be ideated. Some of them are actually getting financed that we're part of, where they are doing full scale, trash disposal on site, water reclamation, solar, that actually pays back on the, kind of monthly HOA fees because it's actually more than. Now, those are still kind of fallacy, but there's real projects that are getting done in, the Phoenix area, or sorry, New Mexico area. There's one in Dubai that, has gotten a couple of different projects done throughout the Middle East. And I think that's where you're starting to see where people are getting very creative and doing a holistic package on site where it's contained into a community. Outside of that, I think it's more, there's still a lot of hope, right, as we go forward. And you've seen trepidation as rates have increased. And, unfortunately, it's been a big shift from what was natural to something that you kind of have to be very structurally creative to try and make people interested.
Any questions from our audience or remote at the moment? Excellent. Any questions from the panelists? Anything else you wanted to add or didn't get to cover?
No, I think the one question I would have going back to you is just on the contract side, do you see pushback on that? Do they ask for more, like from a reduction in rent or other, like, how does that conversation go?
When you say they, you mean tenants?
The tenants, yeah.
Asking for reduction? No, pushback, yes, sometimes, but most of the time they go along with it. I'm thinking about the residents I was talking to the other day at our property that we worked at. For the most part, people are into this. They get it. Sustainability has been around for a while. It's about time that everyone participates in it. I think it's best to also get people, like, it's ideal to have a building out of the ground and start these behaviors from day one. So that's a big thing. But of course, we're working in a lot of buildings that are older buildings that are retrofit and stuff like that. So maybe day one when that new tenant moves in, that kind of thing. But for the most part, people are pretty into it. Yeah.
So with that, we're gonna switch over to the hospitality perspective. So Augustin Desintonio is with us from Moliving, which is a sustainable hotel company. And I'll let you tell us a little bit more about yourself and the company.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm the one who put everything together here. I've been working in the hospitality industry since 1985. All part of operations, all part of corporate, building hotels, reflagging hotels, destroying hotels. And I'm on Moliving now. And I love Moliving because it got the sustainable aspect, right? I work extremely close with the gentleman all the way in the back. His name is Stephen Chang. He's the head of design. And what happened is the best thing about sustainable is eliminating the waste. And that starts in the drawing board, right? We build with sustainable materials, green steel, thermally modified wood, natural stones. We build on modular structures, right? By doing so, we eliminate waste by 50%, and also we eliminate power consumption by about 50%. We build at double the speed that any building could be built, right? So you build, it's going to take you put up hotel in 2 years, we can do it in a year. Because what the site has been prepared, we're already building the rooms, and we just deploy it. They give you an amazing advantage to other the hospitality companies, because any investment that you do, that you have tied up, usually from beginning to end, for you to start seeing profit is about 50%. And we reduce that time by about 300% because we got a hotel running in 12 months, and you can start seeing a return on your investment within 6 months after the hotel start working. I don't know if you're aware, but in the hospitality industry, all hotels in the city, you know, are meant to be occupied between 70 and 85% year round. So the hotel is 1,000 rooms. The expectancy is to be between 700 and 850 rooms occupied. But you have an inventory, 150 rooms that you built, just sitting in there. And we do not have that problem because we can flex our inventory. Our rooms, our suites are in a chassis platform with wheels. So we can wheel it out depending on occupancy. So we got per se a 50-room hotel in the Hudson Valley. And the prime season is between May and September. Rather than having the hotel built up there with 100 rooms, we can easily bring it up to 100 rooms just by wheeling up the extra inventory, right? And then we have mirroring hotels. We're building also on Florida, which opposite seasons. So once the hotel, the rooms are needed in there, we go back to a regular size property, and we can use that extra inventory and use it in a different property setting that we may have. Yeah. So to do this, we think of every single aspect of the hotel or the building that we might think of. We use well water, so we make our own water. We use solar panels. We provide our own energy for the rooms and also the main buildings. We use a WWPP, which is a wastewater treatment plant, where all our waste goes through this plant and through 10 different membranes. Blue light comes out like technically fit to be drunk, that water, but it goes back to the community to be part of the ecosystem, groundwater or streams or whatever it may be. So we are closing the loop. In addition to that, we try to eliminate any waste whatsoever. We are reaching out to local vendors for us to provide the vessels where the products is going to be delivered to us. So no packaging. We're trying to eliminate packaging. We're trying to eliminate organic waste by creating our own garden. So any organic waste that we may have, we compost it and use it up in our garden. So trying to close the loop. The goal is to be net zero, and eventually the bigger goal is to be carbon positive, like provide more energy that we can generate, that we use. So our company at the present time have two properties that we're working on. Hudson Valley is slated to open end of next year. Palm Beach County in Florida is slated to open in 2026. We have some developments happening, California, South Carolina, Colorado. We got two international projects that we got letters of intent because sustainability is the future. Eventually, everybody's embracing, and everybody wants to be participant. You know, everybody when he goes on vacation is looking to an opportunity where they don't feel guilty about using a product. And it's a perfect fit, not just for ourselves, but for everybody that is sitting in this room. Right? We all think about that nowadays. That's it. All I have.
Well, thank you. So that's very fascinating. One of the things that comes right to mind is you have such a transient population, right? Like in this, we're sitting in an office right now and people come and go, but they're more the same people. You have new people every day or every couple days. That must make your challenges even more great.
Well, I'm passionate about hospitality because what you see, you're trying to imitate. If you go to a hotel and you have a great time and you see that one of our slogan is like, create your path without leaving a footprint. You know, that kind of stick with you and you try to do something positive when you go back home or when you try to pick a next destination for your next vacation, right? Because that's human nature. You always try to do the best that you can, as long as it doesn't impose on you, right? So if we do 70% of the groundwork for you, and you have to do 30%, I think that's something that you may come back to do often. Yeah, for new buildings, like our main building got different property, PMS, right? Like your company got different property management system. But most of them don't communicate with each other. So there is technology now that is happening in Europe. I don't think it's happening here. That the interface, any PMS that you have, like whether it be lighting, air conditioning, and then make an interface with all of that to create a tailor-made stay for you. Let's say that you like your room at 65% degree in the morning and then you want it at 72 degree at night. Your windows shades close after 7 p.m. and your TV shut off. Like we can program for that to happen without you doing anything, just by keeping a record of your preferences. So the goal is through technology and through sustainability to be the leader on the hospitality segment.
So maybe my premise was entirely wrong. And it's not actually harder, right? You have these technologies that can step in because of the transient nature. You have the hotel have more control, maybe more be able to direct what people use.
Correct.
And also, as you said, to inspire, which is
Correct.
which is fascinating. Yes.
I was looking on your website. I love what you do. I think it's really cool, really fascinating. Can you talk a little bit about the landowners and how that works for landowners? And it
Correct.
sounds like you don't stay in the same location all the time.
No, we do.
Okay.
We are a hotel. We create partnerships. We create partnership with landowners that got amazing pieces of real estate that they don't want to part, or they just wanted to make it profitable. So what happened is like the landowner will become a partner. Like we don't want to sell our rooms or our brand because we want to maintain brand integrity. If we don't do that, then it's not going to work. So the landowner creates a partnership with us, and they put the land and the infrastructure that is on the land. Per se, from office, the restaurant, the spa, the pool, the sewer, the water. And then we bring to the table the suites that we build and modular. So that happens concurrently. While they're doing the site work, we are building the suites. So that will decrease the construction time substantially. So once that happens, we do the installation and the hotel is up and running. After the hotel is up and running, we divide the split. We split the revenue, not according to how much each partner invested on the project.
Interesting.
So it's a win-win for both of us. After 10 years, you're happy to renew the contract, extend it another 10 years. If you want to, tell us like, I'm good, I don't want to do a hotel anymore, that's fine, we just pack up our room, and there we go. You know, if you want to rebrand it for another hotel, that's fine, but we maintain the management contract, to run that other hotel you're gonna do for the next 5 years.
So just in case that wasn't heard by some of the people in the back or online, you were explaining there at the end that you have a fixed term to the contract with the owners and you are modular. So at the end of the 10 years, you can move, you can stay in the same spot, and that sort of just fits into part of your model.
Correct,
Excellent, super fascinating.
it is.
Thank you.
Any other questions before I ask my next one? So the company was very clearly designed, right? Like sustainability is in every aspect of what
It
you're
is,
doing.
it is, something funny, like, Steven and I will see across from each other, and we're going through woods. He's the architect, he designed the wood, and I want to make the hotel look pretty, right, that's what I do, right? And then we start, I wanted, I don't know, I wanted oak, and Steven said ash, and then I said, why are you picking ash? And Steven, because ash is sustainable, that harvested in the United States, you don't have to bring it up from Europe. I go, yes, you're right, Steven, you know. So little things like that that get done in the drawing board have a huge impact on the sustainability of the building. You know, whether the building is a green building or it's not. So
So why did you guys design it like that? What's the mission behind it?
the mission is to get the best access for real estate, the best value for real estate. A lot of people got wonderful pieces of land, and they don't want to do anything with it, right? But if they get in a partnership with us, they can be creating a lot of revenue, a lot of using that land without really being committed to it. You're not committed to a 100-year lease, and most cities, properties in New York are, or like you go to South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, all the waterfront, they are owned by very few families, and they own the lease ground, right? So, but they don't want to build anything, they just want to keep it up there. With us, they got an opportunity to develop without having really no attachment.
And being good stewards of the land at the same
Correct,
time, which
correct.
those types of families must care
Something
about.
that I didn't mention, like, when our units are building a chassis on wheels, it takes about an hour to 2 hours to hitch it, and there we go. And then once the unit is set up, you will never, unless I tell you, you will never believe that the unit is set on wheels, right? You got skirting around, solar panels, water tanks for fresh water, black water, and gray water. So you can put the unit in the middle of the desert and get the electricity. We have the opportunity to have an evaporator that at 85% humidity can do up to 150 gallons of water and be independent. And then with the water, gray water and black water can be up and running for up to a week without being touched for anything on the outside. Then when we stand in a development that we're doing in upstate New York and Florida, it hook up to the landfill, to the property grid just by hoses. You know, for waste, for water, electricity, we have the solar panel, but if you want to run it on the grid, it can be hooked up easily with a 50 amp, like the RV connector that works on that. All the plumbing within the unit is compliant with LEED Platinum, like for showers and water and toilet. We use many showers. Now, after you use the shower, recycle the water as gray water to be used to be flushed in the toilet. So it's really cool. It's a really good concept. I think it's a winner.
I'm certainly excited for the opening in Hudson Valley to try that out. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I have one more question, which
Please.
may be outside of your area, but I'm curious. Consumer demand is something that I think will be strong for this, right? Like at least within, I'm using myself as a test case, right? I'm very interested in staying in something like this. And I think we've seen studies about this. So, but I'm curious about consumer demand, what you guys have thought about that, and also financing demand. We were talking before about sustainability linked financing. Is that something you could speak to about how has capital been something that's been easier for you to get, or has that been part of your capital marketing plans?
Correct. We tried doing a PACE, program, at the beginning, but there were so many obstacles, that we had to put like close to, 2 million, Steven, upfront on a study to see whether or not we will qualify for a PACE program. So, without any warranties, any guarantee that we're gonna get into the program, it's just putting money up front. That most of the people really don't want to do that. So we didn't opt it to be although we are certain that we may qualify for a PACE program, the amount of finances that we needed, it didn't warrant to have to put so much
Risk. Yeah.
risk upfront to get a loan that we can get it just by the minimum of the company. So that's first. Financing, currently we have select investors. The main owner, Jordan Bank, is not here because he just got married 2 days ago. I think he's gonna open around because we want to grow exponentially. We got some properties on the pipeline, and it will be something amazing to be part of.
Excellent, thank you so much. It's what I would expect, and so exciting to hear a brand that is designing itself that way. We did get a question in the chat about the climate contracting discussions that I mentioned. We'll include that in the resources that we send out for this, because we'll be sending out an email at the end of this to everyone who's registered to just share some of the information about the panelists, about the companies that have been mentioned, but also we'll include that other panel recording as well in the piece. I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us. This was a very engaging discussion, tremendously excited with what we were able to cover, and thank you everyone for being here.
Hi.
Hi.
Is it-